Welcome to this episode of I Don't Know Jack About Parenting, where today I'm going to be talking about 18-month milestones for your baby. So the big question is this: how are parents like us, who don't have a manual, who are doing the best we can, who feel as though we aren't enough, how are we going to raise healthy, happy children who we are proud of and still keep our sanity in that process? That's the question, and this podcast will give you the answers. My name is Ryan Roy, and welcome to I Don't Know Jack About Parenting, a podcast for parents who are being real with themselves. Hey, welcome back to this episode of I Don't Know Jack About Parenting, where today I'm going to be talking about 18-month milestones for my baby. You know, and it's always fun. I don't know about any of you. One of the things when I have a coaching client that have new children, and a lot of times it's the dads, but sometimes it's the moms, and they're like, hey, I don't know what to do with a 3-month-old. I don't know what to do with a 13-month-old. I don't know what to do with a 16-month-old. And if you look back, right, I don't know jack about parenting. But if you look back at one of the episodes in our podcast here, I say Google it. And Google it is exactly what I do almost on a monthly basis. So when you Google it, you can literally Google what milestones or what can you be doing to develop the skills of an 18-month-old. So some of the things that I am excited about right now with the 18-month-old, and just remember, be present. If we're not present with these moments, they're going to escape us. And part of the reason I am sharing this one today is because for those of you on Facebook, I'm on Facebook. You could find me, Ryan Roy. Then please friend me. I'm always looking for new friends, new parents, people who give me ideas, give me feedback. So I would love it for you to find me on Facebook. But one of the beautiful things of Facebook, because I don't know about you, I don't scroll through my pictures all the time, and those things is they go a fond memory from 6 years ago, and that one came up this morning. And we've been in our house a little over 6 years. It's interesting because the renovations being done and things that have changed in the house. But my 7.5-year-old, when he was 1.5 or 18 months old, like my 18-month-old is right now, I had him in a wagon, and we were bringing him around the house in the wagon. And we have a minute video of this, me dragging him, my wife filming it, and him just laughing hysterically and enjoying that moment. And when I look at that picture of him, what do I see? I see our little one now. They are very much alike. The two boys at the same age look, I wouldn't say identical, but you can tell that they are brothers. So if we're not present with these moments, they will escape us. And they're two different personalities. So the older one was very happy-go-lucky, always laughing, and this one tends to be a little bit more serious. He can laugh too, don't get me wrong, but when I see that video, I recognize the difference in personality, and really these things will escape us if we don't pay attention to them. So I'm grateful for Facebook for moments like that, for comparison purposes, and just to gauge where one is versus the other. So 18-month milestones. At the daycare that he's at, they told us just last week or the week before that, hey, we're going to be moving him to the next room, which has kids that are 21 months old to, I think, 2.5, so a 9-month level there. And my wife's concern was, is he going to be the youngest one? And their response was, yes. But his teachers in the classroom he's in now are like, there are kids older than him that just aren't ready to go to the next classroom. And we feel that he's kind of bored in this classroom. He doesn't engage. He used to engage, and he does all the things they do, but they're at a level where he's kind of beyond that and he gets bored, so they want to move him up. Which brings us to the next stage of this next classroom. Says they are going to start removing the pacifier from him, and thankfully he's not a big, it's not a big deal for him. Pacifier is kind of like nap time and bedtime, but he does have it. And they are also going to wean him off of, or sorry, they're going to potty train him, or start the potty training process. Now, for any new parents out there, if you haven't done the potty training process, it has totally escaped me. It wasn't something that I thought was overbearing when we did it the first time. I'll give you this tidbit, which is actually in my book, Reward, in the chapters Reward the Behavior You Desire. And I give this example. When my son was potty training, I remember we would reward him with an M&M if he were to go, pee in the potty. Please don't go through this the way I went through it. It took me 3 weeks to recognize and to get him to, if he were to go number 2 or poop, he would get 2 M&Ms. Very logical. Took me 3 weeks to figure that out. After I did that, he never again pooped or peed in his pants. Maybe 1 or 2 accidents overnight, but never again. So potty training is on the rise. Not quite there yet. Other milestones at 18 months. And this is so much fun if you really pay attention, because the words are starting to flow. This morning he said to me, and not only words, but building words together. And this morning, not that it was the first time, but it's the first one that stands out for me, is everything to our son for the last 6 months has been a car. It was his first word. If it has wheels on it, doesn't matter if it's a shopping cart, it doesn't matter if it's a roller skate, it has been a car. And this morning, he's been watching the movie Cars a lot recently. And just so there is a character, which is a fire truck in the movie called Red. So he has a little red fire truck, but it's actually a character for the movie as his toys. And he says, I said, that's Red. He goes, Red truck. And he always calls everything a car. So we celebrated that. I was like, yeah, that is a red truck. Way to go, buddy. And we're clapping, and he starts laughing, and he's like, red truck. And I was like, yeah, red truck. So, but in addition to that, he has this book that he thoroughly enjoys, and it's 13 words, and I don't know them all off the top of my head, but I could probably get through more than half of them really quickly. It's a picture book, and there's words. It's trying to get them to learn how to read. So you show them the word. First word is hat in the book. You flip it open. There's a little girl wearing a big hat, a green hat, and you say, hey, what color is her hat? Can you point to the girl's hat? And these things are prompted on the book. And then the next one is hair. Where's the kid's hair? And then it's chin. And then it's nose, and then it's eyes, and then they throw in a rhinoceros, and then they throw in ball. And then a couple pages later, there's balls. The last one is cup. I believe there's, I think I just said rhinoceros, which I think is such a big word for a baby, but the book writers know better than I. And we have a number of these books. I think we have like 6 of them. This one's number 3 of the series. And every time I ask him to grab a book, he grabs that. He gets really happy. He sits on my lap, and he wants to read this book and this book only. It was funny, the other day he grabbed series number 1, which is the exact same book. However, it says 3 in the upper corner. And he looked at it. He started walking towards me. He looked at it. He's like, oh, this is the wrong one. He literally threw it down, shuffled through some other books, and grabbed the number 3 book with these particular words in it. I have since hidden that book because although I find rhinoceros and cup, ball and balls and eyes and nose and hair and all of those very fascinating, after doing it over 100 times, I'm ready to move on to a new book. So those are some of the simple milestones, and I'll share another one that is I'm not proud of, because in my book, one of my favorite chapters in my book is chapter 13, never say no to a child unless absolutely necessary. But in society, you'll hear his teacher say no, you'll hear his brother say no, you'll say his mom says no, she thinks I'm crazy with that title. But I've read other research where it says give them options. We need to learn to critical think. We need to tell them what we want them to do. For example, he was by the fireplace one day, and one day I wanted to say, no, get away from the fireplace. But what I said to him instead is I said, hey, can you come to daddy real quick? And he was sitting by the fireplace. It wasn't on or anything, but I just don't want him being comfortable in that. He literally stood up, he turned around, he smiled at me. I said, can you come here? He said, yeah. And he gave me a big hug, and I rubbed his back, and he went right back over to the fireplace. And I smiled. I said, hey, can you come to daddy? And he waddled right back over and gave him a hug. Now that could have been, no, that's hot. Don't do that. And there's another chapter I tell people, don't tell them what not to do. Don't do that. Tell them what to do. So as I was in that process, I remember thinking, I wrote the book on this. What do you do, Ryan? Tell them what you want them to do. Well, I didn't know where I wanted them to go, so I just asked them to come to me. And he did. And we tickled and we hugged. So I got to embrace him. I got to tickle him. I got to see him laugh. There was no struggle. And after 3 times of doing that, he stopped going back to the fireplace and literally just went about his business. No power struggle whatsoever. So when I say don't use the word no, obviously the word no is used because my little one, we were in the yard doing some spring cleaning, so pulling of weeds and getting the yard ready for laying mulch and doing some things, and he's kind of exploring the front yard, and we live on a slight hill, so he went up to the neighbor's house, which is right next to us. It's not like he went across the street. You got, if you knew the layout, it's not that big a deal. But she has a steep driveway, and he was standing in her driveway. And so I went to the bottom of her driveway and started meeting him at the top by walking up. And he wanted to do what he wanted to do. And he literally took his 2 fists, clenched them. He's pushed them down with all of his might. And he said, no! To which I laughed. I picked him up and brought him back into our yard to a safer spot. And I laughed because as much as I don't want him to use that word, it's now part of his repertoire. So one day my wife literally said, hey, can you say no? And he goes, no, 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 no. And that's exactly what my wife says to him. And she goes, can you believe he said that? I said, he gets it from you. And I try to use the word as seldom as possible. So those are 18-month milestones that are going on in my home right now. It's super exciting. It's amazing to watch his growth. And I want, as parents, if you get nothing else, see, I know jack about parenting, but I think being as present as we possibly can and remembering these things makes us appreciate them as they get older, as they get wiser, as we get older, as we get wiser. Because if we can't appreciate them now, we're not going to appreciate them then. Wherever then is for you, whether that's 5 years old throwing the ball, dads, whether that's, you know, a kinsey or a bar mitzvah or that sweet 16, whatever that may be, where you're kind of looking forward to some of these big milestone things. You can't appreciate that if you don't appreciate the simple little things and the big belted first time ever no. NOOO. We'll see you in the next episode of I Don't Know Jack About Parenting. Do you want to be the dad you wish you had? If so, go get my free book, Be the Dad You Wish You Had, at BeTheDadYouWishYouHad.com. Inside, you'll find my most effective 40 tips to quickly and easily transform yourself into the ideal dad. Go to BeTheDadYouWishYouHad.com now and get it while it's free.